Good morning, everybody. This is Amy at City's Edge Quilt Shop, and I am not at the shop today. I'm in my home studio having coffee, and thank you for joining me with our Coffee with Amy segment. And we today are going to talk about our Dresden Plate by Creative Grids. We have been working on this for the last few weeks, and this will be the final segment for that. So today we're going to talk about other things that you can do with the template set, along with appliquing circles. We're going to talk a little bit about reverse applique and making prairie points with your Dresden plate. So I made this cute little segment here and this little mat, and I did it with the Dresden plate. Used my walking foot to quilt it, and we're going to talk about all those bits and pieces. Yesterday I was working on this little mat, and I wanted to share with you some other things that you could do with the Dresden plate template set that you got in the Blue Box Club. So I want to talk about using the template. This is by Creative Grids, and it's the 18-degree Dresden Plate template set. And today we are going to focus on making prairie points with this template set and looking at applique, both regular machine applique and reverse applique with the circles. I'm also got a little glue stick here, a little fabric glue stick. I've got my friction pin, my Hera tool for turning, and just a pair of scissors, okay? I do have a little ruler and a mat so we can cut out the prairie point stuff. So here's what I'm going to focus on. And I want you to know that even though I did this little mat here, I have a quilt behind me. It is an older quilt. I called this kitty cats and party hats. So it's really a Halloween quilt. And the little cats have witches hats on. And I have a tendency to leave this up well past Halloween. So it ends up being kitty cats with party hats. So that's what this quilt is. And this quilt, I used a layer cake, cut out the circles, and some of them are appliqued onto squares and some of them are reverse applique. So fun technique, very quick and easy. And if you come to the shop, we can cut this for you out of a layer cake. So even faster and funner, but it is raw edge applique. And I'm going to show you the turn applique and then raw edge, well, no, I guess it's not raw edge. So that's a whole nother technique, but you can use what I'm showing you today for this also. So let's start with the prairie points, because we have been focusing on the Creative Grids 2018, or I'm sorry, 18-degree template set. I want to show you how to make prairie points with it. So here is a set of prairie points. Look how cute those are and how neat they are. So there's a lot of ways to make prairie points. I'm not showing all of those today. I am just showing you, if you just need a few prairie points for a quick project, how to use this tool to make that cute prairie point. Okay, so I took a 2-inch strip like this, and your ruler, let me put it back on here so you can see. The ruler has numbers 1 through 9, and then it also has 1 through 9. So there's 2 sets of numbers on this ruler. I am going to use the number 2 starting from the top. Okay, so I have a 2-inch strip here, and I am going to cut. Oops, needed a rotary cutter too. Forgot that tool. So I'm just going to cut my 2-inch piece just like you were when you were making your Dresden, except I'm putting the number 2 on here. And I guess you could make these any size, but you will go ahead and make your little tumbler, I guess. And you're going to make it just like you did when you did the pointed Dresden. You're going to fold it in half, and you're going to sew along this piece right here. Okay. We're going to clip it just like we did the Dresden. We're going to open it up, press the seam open, and just like the Dresden, you'll see that where we clipped it, it follows the outside edge, and then we're going to turn it. We use our little Hera tool, get that point out. Okay, and at this point, you'll have your seam open, and you'll take it to your iron and you'll press that open. Okay, and it'll look like this little guy. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead. I have, this is also Creative Grids ruler, and it has 45-degree lines on it. This should be a 45 degrees. So I'm just going to line up one of those 45-degree angles, and I'm going to take my 1/4 inch mark and take it from point here to point here. Okay, and you can see that this kind of dips down just a little bit, but we're going to take it from that outside point. So I'm going to line up my 45-degree to this edge, get the edge of the ruler on those points, and I'm going to trim this. Now I have a little prairie point. Okay, so here's my prairie points. Oops, I had another one here somewhere. And I'm going to take a strip. There we go. So if this were the edge of my quilt, I would start a 1/4 inch out, and I would sew these guys down facing upside down, facing the inside of the quilt. I'd also measure my mat. Okay, so when I did this one, I measured my mat coming in a 1/4 inch, and then tried to space them evenly. So what I did was I took my ruler, laid it down, and found that these were about 2.5 inches wide. So I just started overlapping them a 1/2 inch, and that got me across. Now, if you get to the end and it's off a little bit, you can just move them down or size it and recalculate it based on the number that you have and how much you want to overlap. So I overlapped a 1/2 inch for these guys. Okay. So once you sew them down, you overlap them, you sew it down. I'm going to put it on this because I think it's easier to see. The gray on the black's not so good. So you're going to come in enough for your binding, right? So you're going to just line up the edges, overlap them, and overlap them the same way. That way they're all overlapped in the front. And then you're going to sew them down maybe a little less than a 1/4 inch just to attach them. Okay. And on this guy, I did a pillowcase backing. So if you know what I mean, I just sewed around. I did not do a separate binding for it. I did a pillowcase, and I did that because I wanted these guys to stick off the ends. So you have to take that into consideration too on where you want your prairie points to go. Now, if I had a full quilt here and I wanted them to be on the inside like that, then we could do that. We could go ahead and bind it, and then they would just be flipping on the inside versus on the outside. Okay. So prairie points, quick and easy. Make a very quick little project with those, utilizing your wedge ruler from the Dresden Plate. Okay, so next I want to talk to you about the circles. I had a customer come in and talk to me about how to do something else that came in the Blue Box Club, was the little table mat. And I would do that the same way. The curved part, it was pieced, so just pretend like this is pieced, but I would do it the same way that we did the curved. And I'm going to show you like this. So when you turn it, it's all even and pieced. So I used a piece of fabric on the back of mine instead of fusible. And I'm going to show you why I did that. If you look at this applique piece, this has fusible on it, just like this does. So I have layered a piece of fabric with a piece of fabric. But instead of using fabric, you could use fusible instead. And then you trim it and you clip all around and you trim it and turn it inside out. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. But what I didn't like about this process, it's nice. It made a very nice little circle that I could now applique down, but I can see the white underneath and I didn't like that. I wanted it to look like the rest of either the top or the backing. So when you look at my mat here, see, you can't see any white on the back. It's just this fabric and this fabric. So how I did that was I took two pieces of fabric and I drew my circle with my friction pin. Okay, use the little template, drew it. Then I went ahead and sewed the circle. Now I'm going to trim it out. Okay, so I trim the circle. Okay. Then I clip, once I trim it out this way, I clip all around it, right? So it looks like this. Okay. So it looks like that. All the little clips. And the closer you clip it, you want to clip it all the way to the stitch line. Get a nice pair of pointed scissors that cut all the way to the tip and cut all the way. The closer they are, instead of like an inch apart, the better your circle will lay down. So once I trimmed all the way around, then I separated the two pieces of fabric and I put a little hole in one of them so I could trim all around. Okay. And do it about 1/4 inch. You're going to go all the way around and then you're going to have to do that again. I hate to say. Okay. And then that way, when you turn it, you're going to have a piece of fabric on this side and a piece of fabric on this side. Now, I didn't trim all the way around this, but look, it's already turning pretty good. Okay. So it will be like this. You'll have a cut piece, your fabric, you're going to trim all around, and then you're going to cut a little slit in one of the pieces of fabric, turn it, and then you're going to have fabric on one side and fabric on the other side. That way, when you look at the edge, it's going to be all green instead of green and white. Okay, so that's why it does take a little bit more fabric. But if you were doing some turn applique, you could trim it out afterwards, just to make it a little bit easier after you press it down. But you will get nice, clean edgings for your machine applique. So this little guy, I used machine applique, where I took my little circles and I just appliqued them down on my sheet, on each little square, should I say. So with that, you have choices on how you want to applique. You can either top stitch all around, or you can do a applique blanket stitch around. And I did. And if you look at my applique stitch, let's see, I matched the thread so you couldn't see it really well. But it's a really tiny little applique stitch. So I want to show you, I didn't show this last time when I was talking about machine applique. You have 2 feet, you have your F foot, and you have your F foot open toe. Here it is. Let me grab this so you can see them. Okay. And then there's my open toe. So this was really nice to use when I was trying to stitch on the line and stay on the line. And I'm going to show you something here in a second with that. And then I used the open toe foot when I actually appliqued it down, because I wanted to see, and the open toe really lets you see the needle area and where your applique is, so you can stay on track. So those are the 2 feet that I would use normally. I have my walking foot on right now. So I want to show you a couple features that could be on your machine. So you might have to get your manual out and see if you have these features. But on Janomi's machine, we have 2 things. I'm going to go to my applique stitches, which is right here. And I'm going to do number 3 this time. And what number 3 does is it takes 3 stitches, and then it comes over and goes back. And then it takes 3 stitches, comes over and goes back. There's also 2 stitches or 1 stitch, but I don't like the ones that go back and forth, especially when you have layers that they just don't move as smoothly, I don't think. So I have my little mat here, and I'm going to really make this large because I want you to see the 3 stitches. So I'm lengthening the stitches. This is not what I would normally applique with, but there's 2 features on here. One is this button right here, and this is called back to beginning. And then there's this button right here, which allows my foot to come up every time I stop. The needle's down, and indicating the needle's down, and the foot is up. Okay, so when I push that, every time I stop, my foot will be up and my needle will be down. This is called back to beginning. And what that does is when you have to adjust, if you are afraid that your block, let's say, when you curve, that you take your 3 stitches and it comes over, and you take your 3 stitches and it comes over. Sometimes these will overlap and you don't like that look. So you can go 1, 2, 3, let it go over. Don't adjust it then, because you want it to stay on top of each other when it comes over and goes back. And even if I took, let's say 2 stitches, and now I've got a turn, that means my next one is coming over. Well, I can hit back to beginning, and what it's going to do right there, even though it already took 2 and I turned, it's going to start over with the 3 stitches. So it's going to do 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to go over. So it separates them a little bit more, so you can get a cleaner look. And I'm going to demonstrate both of these buttons. I've got my needle up, my foot up, and I've made my stitch really big so you can see the 3 stitches. So let's just do that. So 1, 2, 3, over, back, 1, 2, 3, over, back. 1, 2, 3. Okay, right now it wants to go over and back. But I need to pivot. Now I can hit my back to beginning button, and it's going to go 1, 2, 3, over, back. So it went back to the beginning of the stitches instead of going over in the interim. So like I said, I tried to do, gray isn't really good, but see, these are bigger than I would normally use, but there's 1, 2, 3, over, back. And see how tiny that stitch is? I have this on 2.0. Now, if you like a larger over stitch, then of course you can increase the width as well as the length. But see how clean and neat that is, and they don't overlap. So 1, 2, 3, normally I'd pivot and then it would go over and it would make it sometimes even be off of the applique. But because of the back to the beginning, I can now start over with my 3 stitches and then go over. So hopefully that will help you if you have a machine, one of the machines that does something like that. If you don't have a Janome machine, you might check that out on your machine. Now, if you do not have the needle down, presser foot up when you stop, I don't know if you noticed that. I'm going to just take a couple stitches here. But what it does, it takes it, goes over, but as soon as I stop, my foot comes up, and that way I don't have to lift the lever, and I don't have to worry about the fabric grabbing underneath. I have full pivot ability to be able to keep going. Okay, that will help you have cleaner curves and corners. That many machines will have this little hole in the front of it. This is an embroidery machine, so it's a little bit different, but you might have a little hole in front of it. That is your knee lift. A lot of us don't use our knee lift. This would be a great opportunity to get that tool out. And what that's going to do is when you stop to pivot, push the knee lift and your foot will come up. That way you can maneuver the fabric better. So a knee lift will help with cleaner curves and corners. So let's talk about reverse applique. Reverse applique is when you have a hole in your fabric and you put a piece of fabric underneath it. Okay. And sometimes this is really fun if you wanted to fussy cut or have a fussy little something in the middle. This could be a fun process for you. So normally you would take like freezer paper or something and draw your circle. But I had a really small project here and I didn't have any freezer paper. So I wanted to show you what I did here. I took my tool and I drew my circle. Okay. Then I cut it out 1/4 of an inch and then I trimmed it just like I did before. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is take my glue. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to step back a minute. I'm going to take my blocks. I'm going to draw my circle. I would press this if I really wanted it. I would press it this way, press it this way. Then I would take my marks that are on here, put it in the center, line it up. That way I can make sure that my circle is exactly in the middle. Okay. Then I'm going to mark. Okay. So now I have this. I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew right on my line. Okay, just like I was going to applique, but I'm doing a straight stitch and I'm going to sew right on my line. Okay. And then after I sew it, then I'm going to cut it 1/4 inch out and snip it all around. When I do that, I get this piece right here. Just turn that over. Okay, so you can see my hole, you can see my snips, and I used gray thread right on my drawn line. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my fabric glue stick and I'm going to just put glue all the way around on my sew line. Hopefully you can see it. It's a little pink. All right. Now, because of my thread, it is going to be where I just push it over and the thread is going to stop it. Okay, so when you do that, you either want to match the thread color to your piece, or you want to match the thread color to the background, because you may see it a little bit when you turn it. But in the perfect world, you would see it right here on the backside, just barely on the backside. And once I do that, then I can take it to my ironing board and that will set the glue. Okay. And I'm kind of rushing through this. I'm sure you will make that look prettier. But now I have a turned applique piece that I can take to the sewing machine and applique just like I would the circle, except I'm doing it on the inside coming to the outside. Okay. And it will look like this. So I have my brown fabric. I put a little piece of white on it. Okay. And I have not stitched this down yet, so I used my fabric glue just to make it stay. So when I take it to the sewing machine, this is ready to applique. I'm ready to either top stitch all the way around or do my blanket stitch to match the other ones. So I am ready. This one is applique down. This one is reverse applique. Okay. Reverse applique. So guys, this is all I have to show you today. So I hope you enjoyed Coffee with Amy this morning. We talked a little bit about prairie points, how to use the 18-degree ruler for that, how to use the 18-degree Dresden ruler for appliquing and reverse appliquing circles. And you can make this cute little mat. Just have fun. And I just used a walking foot, quilted it down, and there you go. Cute little mat you can make for anybody. Wouldn't this make a cute little baby quilt? How cute would that be with the little prairie points on the end? Have fun. Enjoy the day. 6 more weeks of quilting. That's what we hear after today. You all have a great week, and hopefully I'll see you Thursday for What's New in the Studio. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.